You just type that up and find it.
Yeah.
It's like a turn.
Yeah. Well, Mike, before you, well, my voice will travel pretty well with people on Zoom land.
I have a song.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you all for coming today and on Zoom land. Thank you all for coming as well. Looks like we have. Somebody else joining us. So we appreciate you all for coming in today. These are like our fireside chats that we're kind of doing on Tuesdays now, which I really appreciate. Because we're getting to know our brokers a little bit, but more importantly, y'all are getting to know our brokers a little bit more as well. So today we have Christian Cardamon with us. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about you, Christian?
Okay. Christian Cardamon. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nice to see you guys. I think I know most of you guys. If not, again, I'm Christian. I've been with KW for probably 7 years, I think, ish. And have been in Wilmington selling real estate since 2004. I grew up in upstate New York, moved here in '96, 1 year of high school, UNCW, love Wilmington. I've always been a big advocate of the city. It's amazing, as we all know. And I've just been on a journey to, succeed in real estate kind of since the beginning. An entrepreneur kind of at heart as well. Had the pleasure and joy of owning a small business with Matt Barber for a couple of years. So that we all kind of cut our teeth together on the service industry. And over the years, my career in real estate has kind of gone from starting as like an investor, then into a broker, then into a general contractor, and kind of segueing into development a little bit. But all along the way, I've been selling real estate as well as a traditional broker, helping buyers and sellers, and then also love commercial real estate. So have spent a lot of time learning about that and helping clients do real estate, commercial transactions as well. So,
What was the draw to real estate? What drew you to real estate, to get involved? Because first you were an investor first. What was the draw to real estate?
I bought my first house with a student loan in college, and it was so easy. I got like $7,500 from Sally Mae, and then I used that to buy a house. And I did house hacking before it was like a ton. I rented out the rooms.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
You used it as your primary, and then a year later or 2 years or whatever, rented it out and then were able to buy another primary and do it, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I rented out the rooms to all my best friends, and then they were kind of paying the mortgage. And then I wanted to move down to the beach, so then I rented out my room, and then I was making all the extra cash flow that paid my rent down at the beach. And I kind of realized this cycle, if I could continue to do this more, then I could just collect assets, build equity along the way, and have all my friends pay the rent. It's like, it kind of just clicked quickly, like I could buy real estate and have other people pay for it for me. So that wasn't a really tough concept to grasp. I just had to see it in action. And once I did, I just decided I wanted to put him into that.
That's great. I mean, because today, like what we're talking about is your network is your net worth, right? That right there is an example of your network helping your net worth, right? So you're on the investment side of it, and then you decide to get a real estate license?
Yeah, so I bought my first house, I want to say it was like 90s, maybe 98. And I got that same way I got my contractor's license, because I kind of had like a not a great experience and realized I could do it better. And not like to toot my own horn, but just it was such a low bar was set. And then I wanted to be able to kind of have the inside track on how the transactions go and how the inventory comes along. So I bought my first house, and it had like a, line through the wall about here, kind of through the whole house. And I, didn't know what that was, and my agent didn't really say anything about it, and we didn't have an inspection, and we just kind of bought the house. And then come to find out, a line here means probably all the sheetrock from here down had been cut out at one point in time. So we learned a lot about mold and flooding and stuff like that. And that's when I was like, well, man, I should probably learn how this process works, get my license. But the biggest draw to it was realizing the amount of information you have as an agent to the MLS, to off-market deals, to things coming to market was such a valuable insight that, Gary Keller talks about it a lot. It's like insider trading, but it's legal. And so that was like a huge aha for me. It's like, well, let's play this game. It's legal. And it's something that I know and like, and it works. And let's get into it. And then I can help other people do what I'm doing at the same time. So, when the tide comes in, all the ships rise.
Yeah, no, that's very true, and maybe that, we'll get into that a little bit further, your networking, referrals, relationships and that, and how that works. So when you think of the term, like your network is your network, like what do you, what does that mean to you?
I think most people think that it's who you know that is your sphere of influence that you can lean on for referrals. So that's kind of like the generic platitude of that phrase in my mind. To me, it means something a bit more, and it kind of took me some growth to arrive at this, but I think it's more about the people you associate with and the groups that you're a part of and the mentorships and the masterminds that you can associate with. That's really where you can get a lot of the value to help you grow on a much bigger scale than just having an HVAC guy, that sends you business.
True, so that, well, that's either 20% of the 5 people you hang out with most is the expression, I believe, right? So, so that's great, so you put yourself in position, to network with people that you think are gonna advance you, whether it's, your real estate career, or maybe just learn something from them, right?
Yeah.
Share, what are some groups, what are some networks that you're a part of, that have been able to help you grow personally and professionally?
Well, one example is Keller Williams, so you come to a firm like this, and this was the first firm I had been to where folks collaborated. People share their playbook, people will give you their listing presentation. All the other firms I had been with, it was always just like, it wasn't like an abundance mindset. So coming to a firm like this was one perfect example. My network changed significantly here as a professional when I joined this firm. And that's because all of a sudden, even something as like simple as the Rock and Reds Facebook group. You need anything real estate related or industry related, you can put a message in there, and that's a network that will help your network in some way, shape, or form, because somebody will respond or somebody knows somebody. Everybody in that group is coming from a collaborative mindset. And so that's one example of the firm that you're affiliated with.
Right.
Then there's other firms, it was just such like a sea change for me when I came from some of these other firms over to here, and it was great. That changed my business, changed my life.
Yeah, Rock and Reds, I think it's like a hidden little gem sometimes because of it's almost getting into like other people's sphere of influence. It's like, I know John, but now I'm into John's sphere of influence, so it kind of catapults down that way. Can you think of any key relationships that have helped you out along the way that, maybe you've looked for a mentor or just a key relationship that you think maybe is helped you grow?
Yeah, there's been a lot. I'm in a couple other mastermind groups that similar to Rock and Reds, but they're not just Keller Williams affiliates. So I had one group that I was interested in learning about like private equity investing, and so in that network, there's a bunch of folks that are in the private equity space. So I can reach out to that group, say who's involved in this. I want to kind of come from contribution, always try to offer something initially, but not just out there trying to, beg for something or ask for something. But that network has afforded me the ability to make some connections in that space, which has been something I want to explore, and it has been awesome for me.
And speak to the brokers, everybody's on, on Zoom line, like, how can they be intentional maybe about growing their networks, right? And meeting the right people, so that they can have, sort of foster the opportunities that you've had along the way as well.
So I think when you think of like your network is your network, it's not necessarily who you know, it's who knows you. I think is a better way to think about that. So some people are really good at tooting their own horn and shouting from the rooftops who they are and what they do. But my approach has always been a bit more maybe calculated and just kind of slow and steady, where I knew in real estate, this is like the course that I chose, and this is what I want to do. So everybody I talk to, 9 times out of 10, that conversation is about real estate on some level. And so most people know that if you ask them, what does Christian do, or something about Christian, I would wager that most people would say something about real estate in that. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know, my identity is probably too closely tied to real estate, but I love it. It's been a great track for me. So I think starting with your sphere of influence, building that, fostering genuine relationships, and always being someone who's willing to offer something versus the person asking for something has always been the best, in my mind, slow and steady approach. So when you meet somebody, even if you don't get something from them in the first 30, 60, 90 days, or a year or 2 or 3, if you're in it for the long haul, eventually you'll have another interaction with that person. And if it was positive and you brought them some value in some way, shape, or form, and they'll return the favor. That's just how the law of the universe works.
Reciprocity works, yeah, right, so you're really providing them value first, right, where is that value, right, and then through that value, you know, then you feel like you have the right for permission, or they wanna pay it forward to you, right, because you're giving them value for whatever, 6 months, a year, 2, 3 years down the line, but eventually they're ready to pay that forward and provide you business. Now, so let's talk about that a little bit. So you do residential, let's unpack, because you are really in almost every sector of real estate, or a lot of the sectors of real estate. So you're obviously an investor, you do residential, and then you talk commercial as well. Let's dive into the residential side of it. Do you operate your business separately when we talk residential to commercial? How do you handle both sides, because they are two different monsters when you look at them? How do you separate them?
It's a great question. I don't know that I have a specific answer. I basically, I've gotten to the point now where I'm very fortunate. So all the work that I do is by referral. So if someone comes into me that wants to do a commercial transaction, that will most of the time get the majority of my attention. But obviously, all my clients get equal attention in the best service I can provide to them. But I only take focusing mainly on like listing properties at this point, and so I can have more of a inventory of listings if they're residential and commercial. It's easier to service them all the same. There's just different platforms that I use for advertising, for like a commercial MLS and some other like paid platforms to market commercial real estate. But it's the same. A lot of the same methods are used for both, but I don't have a consistent where it's like this is the residential box, this is the commercial box. It's kind of just I'm all in all the time.
Right. So with your network, then, like, how do you? What do you think are practical ways to expand that network? Right, like you've been able to kind of continually grow it both on commercial and residential, and they commingle with each other, which I think is great. So how do you continue to grow that? Like, what if you could give some advice to everybody here? How would you grow? How would you continue to grow your network? Are there things that you do specifically to help? Do you have podcasts or events or things like that that have helped grow your network?
Yeah, I'm always trying to pay attention to like the forefront of what's happening in our industry. So I think you first and foremost has to be paying attention to kind of what's going on. You don't want to be the last to know anything about real estate if you're a professional. So if someone's calling you, or just staying ahead on like local publications, the Greater Wilmington Business Journal is like a great tool to keep an eye on and see who the players are in the spaces that you want to be in. So if you want to be in commercial real estate, this is like a small town, so we're so lucky. It's so easy to get close to the people that are doing like big things in this town. I started a podcast recently, kind of just to push myself out of my comfort zone, and it's been a really cool experience to learn how to do that. But that's a great tool for marketing because that helps create content. I haven't figured out all the levers to pull to distribute it, and I'm not like a huge social media guy, kind of, but I'm enjoying the process. But that's a situation where you have this tool, and the internet has like leveled the playing field, so you can create content, pass it to the world, and then business happens kind of like at the speed of trust. So the faster you can establish trust with anybody, more likely you are to do business with them. So with my management company, I'm always engaging vendors, for example, the heat breaks or the plumbing breaks or something like this. So I get the chance to interact with these trades. And then it's just really important to me to build like genuine connection with these guys. Blue collar guys and girls are some of the best because they're out in the field all day, every day. If you can kind of speak that language, it helps build rapport. And when you see them again and again on different jobs, it's really like just communication 101. It's not, it doesn't need to have like an ulterior motive. It's just, this is the pool that I'm in, is trades, real estate, and kind of what's happening around town. So I'm always not like out there kind of networking. I'm just always out trying to actually meet people and have like a genuine connection with them.
And I love that, something is, well, there was a lot of things that were great in there, I love like the speed to trust, right, like I think that is huge, right? I also think that the knowledge of the commercial side of the business, I think sometimes as residential agents, we don't wanna, we only deal in residential, right? But it's important to know what's going on in the commercial sector, not that you have to sell there, but it does help you with your residential sales, if you know what's going on, right? And
Yeah.
Wall Street Journal is one of those ways. Now, our Wall Street Journal, the Wilmington Journal, Business Journal. Now, what other do you think business? Where did you get educated on? What's happening in the commercial side of Wilmington, so that then you can then service both your commercial and residential customers or clients.
The Business Journal, again, is a great resource. I think they do a good job of like kind of reading a lot of information that's happening, some of the big ticket things here. Our commercial MLS has like a bunch of tools, links, and resources that I look at pretty regularly. And just the network of commercial brokers that they get information kind of from their firms, and just having those, again, those like, if I'm showing I showed a lease listing maybe like a couple weeks ago to a tenant prospect. While they were looking at the property, I had a chance to kind of shoot the breeze with the listing agent for like 10 minutes. It was an invaluable conversation with the guy I've done deals with for the last 10 years probably. And he is like an expert in his space of retail leasing. So that, those conversations, that was a perfect example of where that network that bond continues to kind of strengthen through those like genuine conversations. It's not me calling them up and like, hey dude, what's going on like in the real estate and like the retail sector right now? Like what's vacancy rates like on your side of the fence? We have that genuine interaction, and it's always just worked well for me to ask questions instead of just people spouting out all the time.
Right, well, I think, yeah, that's a great point, sit back and listen more often, right? Now, what about events? Do you have events for your clientele, networking events, or do you on purpose go to in-person networking events? Anything like that going on?
I'm kind of real bad at that. I'm not the most extroverted person. So if I go to those, I'm usually a little kind of like shy and reserved in the corner. But I enjoy them. Sometimes I have to like force myself to get out of my comfort zone a little bit and go to those. And I always enjoy it it's like the gym, you don't really want to go to the gym, but when you go, and then when you leave, you feel better. It's kind of like I take that approach to it. So I try to do it like maybe 1 or 2 a month. I posted a couple, but they're good for establishing kind of goodwill with your clients and stuff like that. But if you have one good conversation at an event like that, it can be worth it. So I always, I encourage people. It's one of those things where I would say like someone has to do that because it's an important piece of the puzzle as far as being a real estate agent and having a good network and servicing your network. Yeah.
Now, I know that you play music as well, that's a hobby of yours.
Yeah.
Now, have you been able to leverage that at all with your real estate and network within the music community to help you?
Yeah, I have over the years. I've definitely sold properties to any folks that have come to see us play, which has been awesome. Kind of like blurring the lines between, I'm sure Matt's done that as well, giving some mortgages to some nine fans. But it's, again, it's like a small town, so that's a situation where maybe you don't have like a direct relationship, but they know you, they know, I know that guy's in mortgages, I know that guy's in real estate, so that gives you an opportunity to, when you do meet them, have that conversation and, switch hats.
Yeah, and are you purposeful when you do meet them, like after a show or something, how does that conversation look? Now you're building on your network. do you, I mean, obviously, you want it to be a little more organic, is it, they come and ask you, what do you, like, how does that conversation look in order for you to let them know that you are in real estate as well?
Oh, man, I always just default to like not being salesy.
Yeah,
That's I'm like, if anything, my approach can be distilled down to like the takeaway close. Because I'm not someone who's gonna try to force myself on anybody.
Yeah.
I would rather, I think success attracts attention more than, that's a more valuable approach than being someone who tries to go out and seek it out. If you can just be the expert and folks know that you are in real estate and obviously if your reputation can precede you, that's the most valuable type of shoe-in you could get in a conversation, because if they're the ones that bring it up, then already you've got like a leg up on your competition.
yeah, so it'd be fair to say it's the relationships that you've built and then your network going to work for you. And promoting your brand, because like you said, you're not, you're not gonna be the salesman out there, ABC always closing, or, like,
Yeah,
which I can appreciate as well. Now, when we talk about your network per se, how do you stay in touch with everybody? Do you have a CRM, what is your way of staying in touch with everybody?
it's really, to make it like organic, to kind of practice what I preach, it has to be like out in the field, like actually interacting with people. Because everybody gets emails and text messages these days, and so they're so impersonal and they're so just generic at this point that you can become annoying very quickly. So if you can just get genuine FaceTime or a phone call, or even if it's a text, but it's not like an automated, so obviously I have a CRM. I use Brevity and then Command kind of in tandem. Just to maintain the database, because obviously it continues to grow, but Keller Williams has been a great resource for me. There's not that many commercial agents at KW, so my name gets thrown around a lot in this pool. So agents are always calling me, asking me for questions about their commercial deals, and I'm always more than happy to take as much time as they need to walk them through it to help them out. Those types of opportunities, that might not serve me right then and there.
Right.
But that happens more often than not, and it's an example of where people more than they know what I'm doing. And so I get like calls from agents at all other firms in town regularly, probably a couple a week, where they're asking me about a commercial deal, or trying to send me a referral for a commercial deal. And so that's just because I've had the ability to discuss with them at some point in time who I am and kind of what I'm doing, but without asking, send me your commercial deals. They just, it attracts those types of calls. And anybody can do that too. It's not me. I'm not doing anything different other than just having this organic conversation with people.
And what does that conversation look like, so that you're not coming across transactions, but that's not, obviously not who you are. I mean, you are relational, right? Like that's how you build your network. So what's your approach so that it's not transactional or not sales, right? So that it is, you want to obviously bring up your business and your brand and your business is, but you don't want it to be sales. How does your approach? How do you navigate that conversation?
Well, if you want to be like strategic about it, and I like to, if it's a new relationship, say that I just met somebody who I feel like they could provide value to me at some point in my career, then I would want to like offer at least between 5 and 10 times interactions where I'm just giving, I'm just offering something. I think the second you automatically, in my mind, if someone comes to me that I meet, and if they ask me for something in the first 1, 2, or 3 interactions, I just put that in like a little box, like that's someone who wants to sell me something. And then whether it's right or not, they don't get my attention as often as other folks do. So if you can just work on, it's kind of like a mindset shift. It's like an abundance mindset for like long term. So if I meet you and you could be an asset to me down the road, then I would just treat it like, let's build an organic relationship and let me see how I can help you. And then I know just in turn that will at some point return to me. If it's someone I need something from like immediately or really defined, then obviously that's a conversation where you just have that conversation, but that's more of a transactional thing, if it's an agent that has like a listing and I need information from them, that's one thing, but if I'm doing that, I may wanna drop hints about what else I'm doing so that they may know that. In the meantime, next time they call me, if they have a question about something that I'm doing, I'm happy to reciprocate. That makes sense.
It does, yeah, no, it definitely does make sense. So I mean, it's kind of been the whole message today is really you really try to keep it relational. You know, you're gonna point out you know, that you're in real estate, of course, right? But
Yeah.
it's really coming from value first. What can I provide first as far as value is concerned?
Yeah.
And so when we look at, because you have your property management company as well, how well do you do with vendor referrals? And I ask that because I'm sure that your vendors work with multiple property management companies and multiple brokers. And how well have you been able to build a referral network with your vendors?
I've been very fortunate to do it at a pretty high level over the years. I get a lot of business from other vendors. And I think it's just also like a longevity thing. I've been doing it long enough to where like eventually, if you just must have sucked, just things where you wind up. But like I had an attorney call me yesterday, he's doing an estate, and I built his house for him in 2008. He still lives there, and he's called me probably 7 or 8 times over since then, but he's got a listing for a piece of land downtown he wants me to help dispose of for the estate. He's like, I see your signs around town, are you still doing real estate, still doing great? And it's always, I mean, you know how it's a small town again, so people see your signs, they always think you're doing better than you are anyway, so kind of ride it as best you can without puffing too much. But I get a lot of business from CPAs, attorneys, vendors, because they're not getting solicited to as much. So if you do engage with them, they love to talk with you, and they're happy to send you business, because we think like everybody's like, everyone's like knows 20 realtors. So if they want to list their house, they're like, who am I gonna call? There's 20 realtors that I can call. But like most of these trades, they have their head down, they're like working, and they're not out like shopping for the best deal. They're like, who do I know that sells commercial real estate? Christians sells commercial real estate. Let me call him. And that's the only call they make. So that's where that relationship, just being in touch with him, I see him out casually, you know, from time to time. That's the purpose. He comes to see our band play all the time. And I don't even talk about that. He sees me playing, he knows I'm still in real estate. You know, called me yesterday and we're gonna list this piece of land for him. So it's kind of a little example.
And I think the lesson, because I think it is a limiting belief that, well, my vendor, my attorney, or my home inspector, they work with, you know, a gazillion other realtors. Why would they send me their business, right? And, you know, I think it kind of points back to, you know, the value you're providing them, but just having a conversation with them sometimes, right? Like, not being so transactional. You know, do you ask for the business? Like, hey, I've used you 20 times and you've never sent me a referral. Like, have you ever, you know, had those conversations with some of your vendors?
Maybe once or twice, just because I've been like, what the heck, you know, but that's not my style at all.
Yeah.
So I've had some folks, like I had a guy call me, it's funny, James can laugh at this, we put an offer out on a piece of land the other day. And this guy who wants it has just been bugging me, always trying to get like free stuff. We check on this, see if they'll sell this, see if this sells. And he's been hesitant to like get into an agency agreement with me for a couple of years, put out a handful of offers for him. And the other day though, I mentioned to him, I said, man, all my, you know, my actual clients get my undivided attention. And I'll stop and drop, you know, take care of them and kind of, so I'll get to you when I get to you. Try and create a little bit of, I want to be his client, so I can get his full attention.
Yeah.
So I've never been out and been like, look, I sent you 10 referrals and you haven't sent me anything, because that's when that relationship really turns transactional. And so if I don't mind kind of tanking that relationship or not worrying about it, but if I want to continue to foster it, just keep giving and it'll come back around at some point.
That is a question I actually have here. How can professionals create a give first mindset, right? So how do you, sometimes that can be challenging, right? I mean, you know, how can brokers here kind of have that give first mentality, or, you know, in relation to, you know, new people they're meeting that they want to bring into their network or their network that they currently have?
I think it's simple. It's just it's a frame for your mind. this is the frame that I had. I'm in real estate. I help people buy, sell, I look for opportunities. And all I do when my phone rings is I help people. And money is a byproduct of that. It's like as simple as that. So it's not when people call me, how fast can I turn this into a deal? Or how can I use my word track to get them to the listing table? It's just, I'll help you, I'll provide. If it's working, it will materialize into some sort of transaction. If it doesn't, I've provided value, I'll move on to someone else. Someone else will enter my world who will benefit from that, and then we'll end up doing business together. That's just, it's just a numbers game, just keep going, provide value to everybody, and the ones that I align with, we'll do business together.
Now, how do you keep everything so well organized? You have your residential sales and your commercial sales, which are lumped into sales, but then you have property management, you play music, you do your start this podcast. Who was in your world to help you, or how do you, outside of Sierra, how do you keep everything going?
I take a lot of notes. My calendar has become my best friend, and so I have a property manager who works for me in Aloha, Wilmington, they have a commercial management firm. So I have that kind of siloed, but they still serve each other, because when the client who we manage the property wants to add another investment or dispose of one, we're able to help with that. So those work together in tandem. And it's really just about time management. So, but the nice thing is they're all kind of under the umbrella where they all serve each other in one way, shape, or form. So it's not too terribly difficult, but I will say, like, one area I struggle in is the kind of loss when I'm pivoting from, okay, I gotta work on my podcast for 2 hours today, or I've got to move the commercial to these deals. So that in between is very valuable time, and that's something I'm constantly working on, trying to improve the flow. Toy with just like one day just doing commercial stuff, one day just doing residential stuff. But we know, like, in this industry, like when the phone rings, man, you gotta dance.
So 100%, it's so hard.
It's like,
And I think that we all struggle with that pivot, right? How do we pivot from, even if your focus is just residential, how do you pivot from lead gen to showing homes, or from, if you're doing, how do you make those pivots and those changes? And do you have any tips or tricks with regard to that you found helpful?
I mean, my schedule usually is in the morning. I'm doing kind of working through my email flow and putting out fires or dealing with whatever administrative things I need to, or delegating tasks to folks that I lean on for support. And then in the afternoon, I'm generally out in the field if I'm having any meetings or any face-to-face or phone calls or anything like that. So it helps to get into like a rhythm, or at least have some sort of structure to where I don't do like a thing where I like work the phones and do lead gen from like 9 to 11 every day. My lead gen, I've just found what works for me. I could go to like Starbucks over here, flip up my laptop, and then shoot the shit with a few people that come in. And that's more valuable to me than calling strangers for 2 hours. So I think you just gotta find what works for you and then lean into that. And you gotta try, whatever your area of expertise is. If you're working just expireds and withdrawal, then you have to work the phones for 2 hours every day. If you're a transactional reload broker or something like that, you just have to pick your lane. And until you figure out what that is, then you don't really know. Once you do, you just have to lean into it. So the podcast now, my goal for that is to turn that into kind of like a marketing arm for me. So I can have folks out there, I can draw attention to that. Then you have a captive audience for as long as that is. So that has to be good enough for people to listen to. And then you have to distribute that, but then that's almost serves as like a lead gen tool. And then, we all know how the internet works. If there's someone that you follow on the internet, you reach out to them, you kind of have a level of, even if it's not real, it's some version of trust. Because you've been watching their content, you feel like you might know them on some level. So that can be a very valuable resource to harness.
And you do have, so you use you schedule out your day, sort of, you have a calendar, you kind of have a flow to your day where you start out the day doing a certain, you work through emails, and it kind of flows that, throughout, the day.
Yeah.
Obviously, sounds like the afternoon is more towards appointments or showings or whatever that looks like, right? Which is
Yeah.
sort of a typical day that a realtor sets up. With and I wanna circle back to networking a little bit. Are your networks, like your networking, is it local groups, like local investor groups, where it's a Facebook page with local investor groups, or is it an in-person investor group, or whether it's investors or not? Or, you know, just in general, what do those networks look like that? Is that, you know, a couple of things you said is you're very intentional with your time, right? If I'm gonna go to Starbucks, I'm gonna talk to people, and, you know, I'm gonna be intentional with that, you know? Like, what about with the networks that you're a part of? Are they in person, are they online? Like, how does, you know, are you, do you kind of have your hands in a lot of different pots?
It's, they're different, one of the ones that I'm in that I spend a lot of time with has a big online portal that you interact with as often as you want to with other professionals. And then they do, we have like a local chapter, so we do like a local watch once a month. And then regional events quarterly, and then there's two annual events, and just like, you know, family. I mean, you have to like go to these events to actually kind of engage, and you get out what you put into it.
Right.
But I think it's important to be strategic about where you spend your time, so you wanna be in the right rooms with the right people, so you're networking with the right people. I joined a coaching community like last year, and it was pretty expensive, and come to find out, I went to one of their events, and then after spending a couple hours with the group, I realized that it wasn't the right group for me. I was in a different level, not, I wasn't better than anybody there, but I was just at a different point in my career than everybody else there. So I wasn't strategic about that. That was where you want to be in a room with people that are doing things, you know, where your dreams are their realities. That way, that will push you, expand your mind, get you into a mindset to do things that are bigger. So it's really important to be strategic with the groups that you do network with, I think.
And how did you find, like, when you were like, all right, how did you find those people on the street? Because when you got into business, like, the internet was still fairly new, social networking sites weren't really up.
Not that old, dude.
No, I'm not, but 04, you know, maybe MySpace was around, I don't know, you know, but like, so how did you be like, I need to meet these people, how did you find those people? What was the process of finding the people that you wanted to network with?
I looked for people that are doing things that are just huge. So folks that are building, like in this town, like I love development, building, construction. So I look and see who's building the biggest buildings in Wilmington, who's managing the biggest buildings in Wilmington, who's selling the biggest buildings in Wilmington. And then organically try and find a way to meet them, engage with them, participate in anything they're doing at any level. And or find a way to get access to them. And I think you either have to, in some instances, there's two ways, you know, one is you just show up and continue to deliver even without being asked value, or you just pay to play. Some groups, you just have to pony up a ton of money to get into the room, and that's what keeps out the people that are doing smaller things, because they don't have the abundance mindset to know that this is an investment in myself. Paying to get into this room, it might feel like a lot of money, it might feel, you know, you gotta put it on a credit card or something like that, I never might do this, but any investment in yourself will pay dividends way higher than any sale, a single sale you'll get, or any return on your stocks or real estate portfolio, I think.
Are there any events? I know that Wilmington Journal used to do a breakfast brunch. Do you still have that?
They do.
And that's sort of a pay to play. You have to buy a table, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, you can go to that, you can buy tickets to that, it's always like, not a morning guy, so that's like 2, it starts at like 7, so. I've never actually been to that, but I go to some of their other events.
Yeah.
But that's a perfect example, you go, everybody in that room is in some way, shape, or form involved in commerce and Wilmington. And knows something that you should know, or knows somebody that you should know. And you're always just one relationship away from a really big deal, or changing your life in some way, shape, or form. So the more you can expose yourself to that, that's the name of the game.
Right. And how much of your business would you say comes from your sphere of influence, your network?
100% of it. So I mean, I don't do any advertising or anything like that. It's just, and granted, again, I have like the power of just kind of longevity. So at a certain point,
Sure.
I'm fortunate to do that, but there's nothing more valuable than a warm introduction from somebody else. It's then when that phone rings, it's like, come list me, it's not come interview. It's,
Right.
John told me I had to call you, sold this house, when can we meet? Instead of, I'm interviewing agents from 1 to 4 today. Awesome, good luck. And then, you know, I'd rather focus my time on, I still have to go out and earn business, obviously, by delivering, but, all of my business comes from my sphere of influence and my network now.
And so that's a great lesson, so there's no, there's no buying of leads or anything like that, now it's not that. You're not saying you don't invest in yourself, there are groups that maybe you're gonna, pay to play, and join in.
Yeah.
But you're being intentional with that and getting business from that. When we look at your sphere of influence, and we look at, that's how you're building, sort of your brand on both sides, the commercial side, and a lot of it now is, you say, longevity as well. But what I heard too is like trust and knowledge base, right? Like you've given them value, and they also are to trust you, right? And trust your, whatever, your advice or your counsel with regard to whatever it is in real estate, and you're factoring in,
Yeah.
What has that allowed you to do as far as now that you've built this big network? What are some of the things that it's allowed you to do, maybe personally? Because, you've met, or even professionally, where you never thought like, because I know you've built some homes too, like, are there some things that, well, because of the network I've built, I've been able to do this, which is really cool.
I think I've just been able to build a portfolio of assets over time, just because of, I reinvest lion's share of the money that I generate with brokerage back into my personal portfolio. And some of the groups that I've been a part of that own just tremendous assets has given me a lot of insight as far as where to put some things, how to be smart about that. Like I'm 45 now, so I'm thinking like a little differently than it was when I was 25. A little bigger picture and kind of longer term. So I've made some great contacts with, like I said, like some private equity guys and some folks that are doing like syndications and stuff like that to help make the most of the resources that I do have. So that's been very valuable for me. But just, it's been able to give me some, you get to enjoy the fruits of your labor at a certain point. We do all this work to make money, but if you're not enjoying it and taking trips and taking care of your family and buying your dream house, then what's it all for?
Yeah, has it allowed you to really, on the personal side, really enjoy life a little bit differently, but you're running multiple companies, and then I'm sure you have some passive income with some investment properties, so has that passive income helped, personally, your life be more rewarding, I guess?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I'm so blessed. I mean, I worked hard for a long time and built that, the management company helps create recurring monthly revenue. So that gives me like a cushion. I still have to maintain that, and it's not free money by any means, but that gives me the ability to then go out and I have the luxury of picking and choosing who I want to work with. And then picking and choosing the investments that I want to make and or the deals that I do or don't want to do. So, yeah, you gotta stop the smoke and roses.
You do, you definitely do, and I love that, does your network approach you with deals? If you're looking, because they know that you're an investor as well, or do you get approached from your network with like, hey, we have an opportunity here for you that may be interested, whether commercial extended years, and obviously heavily in the commercial side as well. They approach you with deals that would then, and what does that conversation look like or sound like?
Well, it's, again, I think if you're able to become a local like authority in any sector, then people will know that you're an authority and that you're like a real estate person. Okay, so then they want to reach out to you when they have an opportunity. So I get, everybody probably gets pinged by wholesalers all the time. I had a wholesale guy reach out to me 2 years ago with an opportunity to help him move a piece of land, because he knew that was an area that I do a lot of work in, and it was a development piece. And so that was a perfect example. Because of that relationship, I ended up buying that directly from him. And that's something that I'm working on now that 2 years later, we're hoping to make some headway in this quarter. But that's a perfect example, just they knew I was like an authority in that part of town in real estate, they reached out to me, and I was able to come on, and capitalize on it, so.
I love that. And when we look at that, your passive income, one thing, you know, you said that stands out especially to me was that now you get to pick and choose who you work with, because you have your passive income, which is sort of funding your life, right? So now, even at the ebbs and flows of real estate, which are inevitable, and you were through the Great Recession of, 08 to 10, 11. And, you went through COVID, and now we're kind of transitioning to a more, traditional market. Is it fair to say that having that passive income has really just relieved a lot of stress and worry with regard to the real estate side of it?
I mean, yeah, that's 100%. I think, but you have to think about it, and what I did was you have to put some energy into it, otherwise you're just working, you never really kind of, you might feel like, I know folks that make 7, 10, $15 million a year, but they think that they're broke. So it's always about, you have to actually spend some time and say, what's my number to like survive? What's my number to arrive? And what's my number to thrive? So if you don't think about those, then you're not aiming at anything. So if you figure out how much you need to actually survive each month, then you can quantify that. That's selling 2 or 4 houses a month, whatever. Then, all right, that's my cost of living. Then when you have that handled, then your next goal is how much till I arrive, when I get the watch, or I get the car, or I get the house that I want. What does that look like? Then you now have a new target to aim towards, and have a thrive number. What's the number where I just get to do the craziest stuff that I want to do, go on the vacations I want to do, spend time with who I want, when I want. If you're not thinking about it in a strategic manner, what those benchmarks look like, then you can never use and leverage your network to get there.
And how long do you think it took you to get there to a point where you're probably still striving, but to get to a point where you felt comfortable, like maybe you arrived, with regard to building out that network from when you started, actually it's 97 or so. When did you start to feel comfortable? Like, all right, I've arrived there.
I don't think. I'll never, I mean, I'm always going.
Keep pushing that benchmark down.
That's dangerous to get too comfortable. If the second you think you arrive there, someone's gonna speed right by you. And I'm not even the most competitive guy, but I just think complacency is a very dangerous place to be. I've done well, and then I got reset very hard after the market crash, so I had to start all over again. So while I have like a very wide abundance mindset, there's still a little bit of me that, you don't want to fly too close to the sun. You don't want to act like you've got everything, so I always remind myself of that. I think it's important for everybody to just kind of stay, open-minded and very optimistic, but still got to stay grounded.
What are some things that keep you running?
Well, I mean, it's my family keeps me grounded, I have a 3-year-old daughter and another son on the way, so my reality in life is going to change significantly in a few months. Keeps me very grounded, also keeps me very hungry to be able to go and provide, and to think, what is next year of my life look like? How can I position myself to where I can spend time there? These are things I never thought about before. It was just work, generate income, pay bills, and try and get rich, whatever. But now it's like, it's a much more strategic approach. And I think, I wish I had done that earlier and figured out again, kind of those 3 benchmark numbers where I need to be, so I can treat my life and my business like a game I can play.
Right. What is your big why the same as it was 20 years ago? Has it changed? Now you're a young family now, and a new one on the way. What is that? What is your big why?
Now my big why is I want to create a big life and just have a lot of experiences that I have always wanted to have, and start working on a bucket list thing. But I really think it's important now. I have like a really big goal to donate a lot of money to charity this year, more than I ever thought I could do. I just want to give back, because again, I don't feel like I've arrived in any way, shape, or form, But I feel like it's been my responsibility. I've been so fortunate just to be healthy and to have lived this long and to have the family I have now where I need to mentor others, give back. And, I sound like I'm like an old rich guy, but I'm not that at all, but I'm kind of, in my mind, I'm treating myself like that. It's just important for me to do that. So that's become a big part of my life.
Any lessons along the way with building out that network, like failures maybe that you had, or any lessons of how to build out that big network? I mean, we know value, that's, like that comes across really strong, right? And knowledgeable and trust, anything else you can think of with regard to that?
I mean, it's simple. It's not really. It's kind of boring. It's just getting in the reps. You have to do it. You have to show up. You have to meet people. You have to talk to people. And you have to be in the right rooms. It has to be organic, otherwise it doesn't work, in my opinion. So there's not a secret sauce. It's just you just have to do it. You have to go out, meet people, build genuine organic relationships, come from contribution as often as possible, and hang in there. Just don't stop. It has to be like a life, like a mission, instead of just like, I'm gonna get in and try real estate for 3 years and try and come from contribution. At the end of 3 years, when you realize you haven't made any money and you get out, you wasted that 3 years. Whereas it has to be a long game, like a marathon, not a sprint. Those silly platitudes are true.
Yeah, that's true. And would you say that with regard to that, you're pretty consistent with your schedule and what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I think just the way that you treat people is the best way to be consistent in that. So anybody that I interact with, whatever kind of day I'm having, I just have to try, you just gotta try and be a good person, man, as often as you can, and just try and make every interaction where it's a memorable interaction, because the people that aren't remembered certainly aren't gonna be top of mind when it comes time to do business, to list their house or to buy something or sell something. So you just have to have good communication skills, and you have to make an impact on people, so.
Anything that you've tried along the way that didn't work, you tried the podcast? I'm sure that'll work. Anything where you're like, give this a try, and it didn't work, you're like, oh boy, now good.
Yeah, and I've tried a lot of, buying leads and trying different avenues of generating business that way. I've tried different advertising avenues. I've tried some different coaching programs, and it's important to have the right mentors and leaders, and not make sure that they're who they say they are, and that you have core values that align with theirs. Because there's a lot of folks on the internet now that are just selling flashy cars and lots of followers. And so I'm a big proponent of paying to be in the right room, but I think I've made some mistakes, spent some money in some of the wrong rooms. You don't know until you do it.
Are you quick to react though? Like when you're I think with the coaching group, I think you realize, or it sounds like you maybe realize pretty quickly, maybe this isn't for me. And how quick were you to make that decision to leave that coaching group, or just, maybe I'll just stick it out?
I stayed in it for like 6 months, and it cost me a ton of money, but I still got a lot of value from it.
Sure.
And so I think if you just have that kind of mindset where it's like, okay, these aren't really my people, but you take what from the information, they're still providing a ton of really good information. It just wasn't my MO. It's like a really hardcore sales, like car salesman, and I got in and realized it wasn't really my jam. So, but they're still delivering a lot of gold. And so I just took that and applied it to my MO. And so I still got a lot of value from it. It just wasn't something that I wanted to continue to foster. So I wanted to go and find a tribe that I kind of gelled with a little bit more.
Yeah.
But it's important to give it enough time to where the investment and you get a chance to meet enough people to give it a fair shake, whatever it is. It's not just anything you do for 30 or 60 or 90 days and then back out. It's like advertising. It takes return to market. People need to see it 3 or 4 or 5 times for it to resonate. And so I think every program that you're in, or just like fostering a new relationship, you gotta meet people 3, 4, or 5 times before there's that genuine connection. So anything worth doing is worth doing with repetition and doing well.
Is there anything that you do with your network right now that you're that you think helps you either grow your network or helps you just stay top of mind? Like, are you a newsletter person? Is there anything that like I mean, outside of the organic phone calls and I do like the text message, which I love, a personal phone rather than the CRM itself. Is there anything that you do to just stay top of mind that you're fairly consistent with?
I'm working on, building a brand for social media a little bit right now, because that way I wrestle with it a little bit because I don't necessarily want to work with a bunch of strangers. And I haven't figured out a path that I maybe want to monetize with an audience. But I feel like it's important for all of us as independent contractors who are building a business. The bigger audience you have, the better regardless, and it will afford more opportunities at some point in time. So I'm kind of leaning into that, but right now it's also like the podcast is like a passion project for me. So I'm enjoying that, and that's something that I think I'll lever at some point in time. But right now I just want to provide content and provide value to people that are listening. And again, I think it's, if you approach it with not what can you do for me, but here's what I'm doing, or here's what I can do for you, eventually it'll come back.
And what's the subject matter for the podcast?
Podcast is called the Build Better Blueprint, and it's basically where I'm interviewing like a high net worth individuals who can share their experience on how they built their business or their life, what they've actually done, like the strategic steps they've taken, so that they can share their path with others. So they could say, I had a guest on yesterday who is working to build a $400 million construction company. And so how the hell do you do that?
Right.
So I asked him, and so he told me what he does. I asked him what he does in the morning. What books is he reading? Who's he listening to? How's he hiring people? These are all things that selfishly I want to know the answer to, because I'm always a student trying to learn and figure out. You see people doing humongous, crazy, audacious things, and you're like, how did they do that?
Right.
Right. Unless you ask, and it's not always the like attractive things. It's a lot of the boring, repetitive things. But I want to learn, and then I want to share that with other people so that they can do it too.
A couple more questions before we finish up. Has your network been able to have a positive impact on, like your friends and family? Have you been able to build their networks and build their network, from your network?
Trying to think of like a specific situation where, I could point to that. I know my clients benefit from my network when they need something. So, I kind of pride myself on being the guy who's got a guy for everybody. That always has worked well. So if someone calls me and says, man, he went out. I'm always quick to provide 2 or 3 people. Or like a videographer, something like that. I'm able to help out with that a lot, and I think that's a really important way for us just to stay, again, top of mind. If you can become the person that is like the go-to, then you're always providing value to people. And then most importantly, you're top of mind. So then you'll be that person when a neighbor says, I gotta sell my house, do you know a realtor? And then, yeah, you gotta call Christian, he's a real estate guy. So again, that's where it kind of comes to a circle.
Great. And so I love the podcast, by the way. I think, before we close up today, like, let's plug the podcast again, the property management company, of course, commercial, a lot of us are in the residential sector primarily, so we're not that knowledgeable of the commercial, and Christian could be a great referral partner for you in that side of the business as well. And then, maybe even some new build stuff. So, go ahead and brag on a little bit of yourself and how you can, help everybody in Zoom land and, here in the room, and how you may be able to help them out. I just, again, was offer myself as a resource for if you have a commercial deal you need help with, or you just want some insight on maybe something that you're looking at investment wise. I love talking about people that are buying. I think as realtors, we should all be buying houses. If we're not buying houses, we're talking the talk and we're not walking the walk. So I think everybody should be actively investing with the knowledge and the access we have to this industry. So I'd love to help talk you through a deal. If you've got one on your plate, is it good? Are you underwriting it correctly? Do you have any
needs in the commercial world, love to be your go-to resource. The commercial management company is Wilmington Commercial Property Management. If you know folks that have commercial real estate that need services of a property manager, and then the Build Better Blueprint is on Apple and Spotify, and it's gonna be a slow roll, but I'm getting there and I'm learning how to talk to people and interview. It's got me out of my comfort zone, and I always think that's where the growth is when you get uncomfortable, then you know you're going the right direction, so.
I love that said that earlier you said you're not an extroverted, you're doing podcasts, you're on stage with bands. You're out there for sure, but definitely, maybe more introverted at your heart. Put yourself out there, make yourself feel uncomfortable, going to networking events and, like doing some things outside the box to kind of help build that network or maintain that network as well.
Yeah, you just gotta do it, man. At the end of the day, you gotta get uncomfortable, and everyone worries about what are people gonna think, and at the end of the day, no one's thinking about you, they're thinking about themselves. So just go do it. If you make an ass of yourself, 5 minutes later, nobody remembers, nobody cares. So, that's my takeaway for the day.
Awesome. Well, what questions does anybody have for Christian? Zoom land, you can feel free to ask. I can get up and check the chat box as well. What do you have about building your network or maintaining that network or the lessons from it? And what questions do you have?
You want to do that?
I think he's that.
Hungry, I guess. We go to Zoom here. Zoom people have done a really good job.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I want to thank Christian for coming in today, kind of going over it. He's a great example of really utilizing his network to build his net worth, right? He's done that over many years. He's done it obviously very relational, not very transactional, which really stands as probably his test in time in real estate. There are times you can be transactional, but relational, if you want any kind of longevity in real estate, it's really you gotta build a relationship first. And have a relationship with your people, and he's such a great example of that and continuing to foster those relationships. So thank you very much. You're a great, great asset to us here. We appreciate you. So thank you for your time today. Appreciate it. Now y'all can go grab some people. Thank you very much. Good job.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, love it. I love a lot.